We're back. Welcome to the Small Council here on theStream.tv. Season 6, Episode 9, Battle of the Bastards. I'm your host, Ramon Govea. I have Ginny McQueen here of House Mormont. And we also have a new guest joining us today. We have Lynn Wachter, who's representing House Targaryen. And we're here to talk about probably, for me, one of the best episodes of the season so far. Wasn't that amazing? What do you guys think?
I mean, as you can tell, okay, just for everyone knows, there is a heat wave going on in Los Angeles right now.
We should clarify that.
We look a little hot. It's because, you know, fire and blood, man.
Yeah.
Fire and blood.
It's 400 degrees and my hair is sweated out. So if you can't see her because this is in the way, that's what happened. And it was an intense episode.
And yeah, so now we're already worked up.
Yeah, Mama needs a cocktail because it was upsetting. It got my blood pressure up.
So this episode was a pretty big deal for everything happening, not just in the North, but in Marine too.
Yeah, I mean, at first it was, you know, the only things they were releasing were the, you know, images of, you know, up at Winterfell. Like, we just thought it might be just the North, but there were a couple little rumors that maybe we were going to see some other stuff, and we got to see some other stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
They kicked it off with the other stuff. Like, we didn't start, I thought they were going to make us wait until later to get to that. But no, they got that out of the way quick. After Daenerys landed, like I said earlier, we were talking, and I said like Tony Stark, just like on the balcony, ready to save the day. After that, I mean, shit popped off quickly and was handled with the quickness, which I'm not mad at. Hashtag House Targaryen.
Yeah, I mean, we had Tyrion, you know, kind of like, oops, sorry, I didn't quite hold down the fort as much as, you know, we thought. I mean, as far as he's concerned, he did do the thing he thought was the smartest thing to do. But you could definitely tell she was like, no, we're done here.
Well, it was also the difference in the way that they rule things or they do things in Westeros and the way that she has been doing things, which is not at all in that same red tape. It felt like a very, what Tyrion was doing, which I get, was very political and red tape, and we should do this, we should have this conversation first. And she was like, no, boo-boo, that's not gonna happen.
That's not how we do things.
We're gonna wreck shop, and they're gonna go away, which, it clearly worked.
So far, every time, it has been this, like, every time Dany's comes in the end and she's like, no, I know what to do. And it always keeps working out for her, like, pretty much every time this stuff comes up. And like, as we saw, you know, when she was like, oh no, I'm in the Dosh Kaleen. Guess what? On fire. Like, she just shows up and everyone's like, oh, all right. And so far, most plans she's had have worked out pretty well. So I don't know if it's luck or if it's smarts or if it's the combination of the two, but.
Well, I would argue.
And dragons.
The same thing. I would argue the same thing for Jon Snow on some level.
Yeah.
Like, he tends to, dude came back from the dead, let's be honest. He didn't want to come back from the dead. He didn't know, he wasn't planning on it, but the same thing sort of ends up happening with him, especially early on in the seasons when we see them first go across the wall and they're met with the White Walkers, and he was pretty freaking lucky. Yeah. For all practical purposes. I mean, Uncle Benjamin, we thought, bit it, and then said we'll leave.
Right. So let's jump back to Marine for a second, because that first scene, we got a pretty big reveal in that, you know, obviously Tyrion is very diplomatic. That's his approach all the time when it comes to trying to figure out the politics, and that didn't work out too well. Daenerys is obviously someone who rules by force. She comes in and lays down the law. And now she's come, and in full force, she has everyone that's going to support her moving forward now onto Westeros. So she has the 3 dragons now unified. She has all of the Dothraki ready to march and actually get in the ships. So they're in a really good position right now. And I think now, obviously, they managed to kind of show the slave masters who's boss. She laid down the law. Like you said, they had that little showdown of ego right there between Tyrion and Daenerys, where they had to figure out whose plan was really going to work. And I think they both learned from each other at that point.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And then we got to see Grey Worm be kind of super badass for a sec.
Exactly.
That was pretty great.
I mean, that exchange between the slave masters was awesome. I mean, we've seen that how many times where the slave masters will come and say, we beat you.
They don't learn their lesson.
Daenerys, mother of nothing. And then she comes out and shows them his
like
boss.
at this point, I'm like, have they not learned their lesson? Like, don't do this.
It clearly happens every time they like puff all up in the chest
Yeah.
and start shit talking. So I don't know why they haven't figured out yet. Like, let's probably not talk too much
Yeah,
shit.
let's maybe keep it on the DL. You know, no, they're just all like, whatever, and then that happens. Like, it just keeps happening over and over and over.
What I loved about that moment was, in the distance, the shot of the dragon
Oh,
on his
when
we
face.
first-
Just a couple of flaps, you're like, oh, dude, it's gonna end badly for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
and they did
that's so
that.
good.
Did that a couple episodes ago with the Hound too,
Yeah.
where they have
Behind him,
someone
yeah.
doesn't know what's coming behind them.
Yeah.
They love doing that. I
And
mean,
then
it's
we had the
powerful.
two. Finally, the other two dragons are free. They're like busting out, and we were all just
And they join the
losing our
mix. They
minds.
go right into the fray. They
I was
fall in
glad to
line.
see the dragons at least like wanted to help, and they weren't like, "Hey, Mom, why'd you lock us in a basement for like 2 years? What's wrong with you?" I think they're really like just kind of pissed off, but also the sun, the sun.
A little bit, and maybe craving to light some shit on fire.
Yeah, and
I mean,
a little
maybe
hungry.
they
They're a
really
little
need to do
upset.
that.
They need to let out their temper tantrum.
Well, I mean, if there's ever a time for you to let off some steam, like now's the time to get your adolescent angst on.
And this is, we were talking about it while the show was going on. This is what we've been waiting for. This is like, all the dragons are ready.
Full on.
Daenerys is in
Yes.
full force. They're ready to go to Westeros. Just a couple loose ends, a couple ships left that they need to get. But once they do that, they just made a big pact. I mean, between her and Yara.
Yeah.
That was a big
Beautiful.
deal.
That scene was
That's a very big deal.
fantastic. And I hate Theon. Like, I cannot stand the Greyjoys. I do not like them in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
But that scene was just.
So before
yes.
we go to that scene, I want to ask you your thoughts on the Sansa and Ramsay relationship at this point. I mean, we obviously know what happened by the end of the episode, which is awesome. But in the beginning, she has this sort of standoff with him in the beginning where she says, "Tomorrow you're gonna die. You are gonna die."
No, that she was done. She was like, "We're done here. We're done."
She had, I think she had reached her limit and realized the resources she had at her disposal.
Yeah.
Even though, she and John were going back and forth and John wasn't necessarily quite as confident, we need to go forward with as many men as we have at the moment. And she knew, that was the other thing too, she also had the ace up her sleeve because she knew about Littlefinger.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but then there was still, are they coming, aren't they, will they, won't they?
Yeah.
And we won't know probably until next week whether she got confirmation that they will be there, which is why she was being so badass.
Right.
We don't know.
Right.
But I felt like for her in that moment, it felt like this is it, regardless of what happens. If Littlefinger's army comes and they save us, great. If John and his people get it popping, great. If we all die, we lose, that's fine too, because I'm gonna die before
I've
I'm
accepted
going
it.
back. Yeah.
Right.
There was an acceptance there
Yeah,
of like,
absolutely.
this is it. This is going to end one way or another.
Yeah.
And she
So-
also she had already decided, like, the conversation with John where she's like, "Rickon's dead."
Yeah.
Rickon is dead.
Yeah.
And John was just kept holding on, and she had already grieved. Like, she was over it.
Yep.
She was
Yeah.
like, "He's gone, it's over." And John hadn't gotten to that point yet, and she's just like done.
Right.
She's like, "That's it."
Well, it was a great conversation. Oh, look, I'm molting. Just here. It was a great conversation argument between Sansa and Jon Snow
Yeah.
about. Oh, shame.
Steve.
Oh, honey. What's
going on around
She's
here?
exhausted. It's so hot. There was such a great conversation when she asked him, "Why haven't you asked my opinion?
Yeah.
I've actually spent time with this man.
Right.
I'm not a little girl.
Right.
I've been paying attention.
It's a big deal.
I know how he operates. I know the way his twisted mind works. Why aren't you listening to me?"
Yeah.
So that conversation in and of itself was
Yeah,
great because, and keeping it entirely 100. Like, this is what's real. I know this
Yeah.
man. Our brother's
Like,
dead.
come back to Earth, John. Like, this is what's happening. This is the reality that we're living in, and you're gonna have to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep, and she says, "I'm not going down. He's not going to take me back. I'm going to die before I go back into his hands." And that's a pretty
Yeah.
bold statement. And she really,
She meant it, man.
She did.
She meant
she
it.
laid down exactly where she stood with John moving forward. It's like, this is it. We're going to do it. If not, we're going to die trying, and that's it. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
So obviously we had a little bit of. I mean, first of all, this intense war scene was incredible. Like the way it was done, I
So
really
great.
enjoyed it. But let's talk about Davos and Tormund, who are there,
Aw.
in the fray. Kind of trying to figure out exactly like how they're gonna get out of this one. They
Yeah,
know
I
that
mean-
they both, as seasoned warriors, know that the odds are stacked way against them.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, they were, and I mean, we kind of, with Davos, he's already lost kind of his way a bunch of different times now
Yeah.
of like, well, now I can't do this, can't do this.
Right.
And you know, he goes, oh, I'm gonna go for a walk, and I think we all kind of knew, like, oh, he's gonna find out this, and especially because they did the previously on where they showed Shireen in the previously on. We're like, oh, this is the time.
Yeah. Connect the dots.
It's gonna happen. And as soon as he picked up that stag, I was like, Melisandre gonna die soon.
Yeah. It was. You know, it's gonna end badly for her.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, like I said, that brief moment of like how in the natural fuck that stag survive
That fire.
Yeah, like come on. Okay, but suspension of disbelief.
Like I
again.
said, maybe it was carved out of ironwood. It takes a higher temperature to.
Maybe.
Trying to help you guys out, writers.
I think Tormund and Davos both, like you were saying, to piggyback a little bit, seasoned warriors understand that the odds are stacked against them, but also understanding that in that split-second decision when they knew Jon was going to charge, and they were like, oh, fuck, don't do it, don't do it, oh, shit. Them making the choice to lay back for as long as they lay back, like they had to send in waves. Yeah. And Jon knew that if he could, or at least I think he knew that if he could defeat the bulk of them, which is why he wanted to piss him off, that's what he was saying, because he wanted him to come full tilt.
Right.
So if we can get through the bulk, if we can manage to do that, then maybe we can, our last wave or whatever.
Yeah, they still were like, we have a chance, because we don't know what's going to happen, so there is still that chance, but we're just going to have to see. Like, it's literally up to fate at this point.
Well,
There's nothing else we can do.
I think it's really important to note that conversation between Tormund and Davos when they're discussing Jon, and they even say, we fought for men who were kings. Mance and Stannis both were these certain type of men. And they both say Jon is not a king, which is a big deal because I feel like that's going to come into play later when we start to whittle down who the contenders for the Iron Throne are. That's knowing how either the writing team handles this, DB and David, they like to plant seeds like that, that come into play later.
Yep.
I read that statement though, or that conversation. I read that as a complete compliment to Jon.
Yeah,
I was like,
as he's an actual person.
Yeah, he's not a king fighting for
a realm.
He's not a mad king fighting for however you want to say it, be it Targaryen or
he's not looking for power.
Yeah, he's not power hungry.
Yeah.
He just wants his home.
His home and his family, and that's it.
And he's also trying to save everybody else.
Yeah.
Which everybody keeps forgetting.
Right.
Like, by the way, guys, there's a reason the wildlings are here.
Right. He's trying to save the world. Like, by the way, we can fight and all, but winter's coming.
Yeah, guys, we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
By the way, don't forget to send us your questions using the hashtag #TheSmallCouncil on Twitter. We're going to be answering a couple of those in a few minutes. But tell us what you think. What do you think about everything that happened in tonight's episode? A lot has happened, so there's a ton to talk about. So hit us up. We're going to be tackling that in a few minutes. But one of the big moments of this episode that I thought was really cool was that conversation between Jon and Melisandre where he asks her not to bring him back. Yes. And they have this sort of philosophical debate about God and purpose, right? It's so cool to have these kinds of moments broken up into the action because you really kind of get to understand the philosophy of the world. What was your sort of takeaway from that conversation, Ginny?
Well, I mean, it was definitely, we know that Melisandre had her faith shaken, for a while.
Yeah.
And her being able to bring Jon back kind of gave her the okay, I'm on the right path. Like, I'm doing what the Lord of Light wants because he wouldn't have let me bring him back otherwise. So she believes now that she's doing what her God at least wants her to do. She believes she's on the right path. And I think, we had made this comparison to Jon basically being Buffy.
Yeah, he's
when, he gets brought back and it's just like he was not prepared for that. He did not have a desire. I feel like he was done. He was like, I was done. And now I don't want to go through that again. Like, don't let it end. If it's going to end, let it end. And she's like, sorry, I do what God tells me to do.
Yeah.
Like, that's, as far as she's concerned, she's doing the right thing.
Right.
Like, she has no reason to think she's not.
I feel like she has doubled down on that with him, only because early on, I think she felt like her wires got crossed. Like, she got it wrong. The whole mishap with Shireen and everything, and thinking that, and all behind Stannis, and thinking it was right, and realizing, oh shit, it wasn't. Yeah. So I think that shook her and broke her to a certain degree. And then, when Jon died, she was just like, fuck, but I saw him in the flames too. Like, nothing I know is right. Like, everything I thought I knew and everything I thought I was fighting for, or that the Lord of Light wanted me to fight for, is all wrong. My wires are fucking crossed. But then, being asked to bring Jon back, not thinking she could,
Yeah.
having
She
a
just,
crisis
like,
of
a last-ditch effort
Yeah,
of
she's
like,
like, fuck it, I'll try it. Yeah.
But I honestly think that even that conversation they had, I don't think she is feels like she's back on her game again.
Right.
I just feel like I really genuinely think she felt like, well, all I can say is I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Had
like she's
it
clinging
not have
to
been
that.
had
Sure.
it not been meant.
Her faith
and
is
that's
restored.
all I can say.
Yeah, her faith is basically restored.
She's like, I've got this one thread and I'm holding on to it because it's all I've got. It's
Yeah.
this belief that I'm doing the right thing because you came back. Like,
Yeah.
you're
Right.
the reason I'm still here and everything's
Right.
still happening.
Yeah.
And of course, meanwhile, while all this is going on and building up to this battle, we have Theon and Yara, who, like we were saying earlier, make it to Meereen, and they're basically they make that pact with Daenerys.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal because, again, we've been talking about this throughout the whole season, how there's very much a theme of female empowerment that's been kind of growing this season. Kind of like we were saying, it's a lot better than it's been before, right?
Yeah. They're redeeming that.
Yeah, no, it's great. And so they bond on this, and they even have this sort of like chemistry between
They got
them.
a little wink
Yeah,
wink
there's
in
a
there.
little wink
We were
wink, nudge,
cheering
nudge.
that.
There was a power struggle and there was a flirtation and a power
Yeah,
struggle
absolutely.
for sure going
Yeah.
on.
Absolutely.
Which
It was a mutual
I think that's
respect.
the same thing
yeah,
almost.
I think it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was a mutual respect.
Oh yeah,
of like,
because every time Danny would say something, Yara was right back at it with like, well, so was my dad, and
Yeah.
your dad was too. Boom, like
Yeah.
we are the
Yeah.
same, you and I. And she's starting to be like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm feeling you. I'm on your level
Like,
now.
how the same are we really?
Yeah, wink, wink, and I feel like Dario would be really into that too. So I feel like everybody
would,
wins.
oddly.
Everybody wins.
Poor Jorah would be
Jorah's just
crushed.
crying in a corner.
We see Jorah.
Which is grayscale.
10 sad
creepy
Jorahs.
grayscale.
You know what? Maybe what cures grayscale is like like your tears of true love. Like maybe that's the cure.
Tears from a broken heart. Tears from a broken heart is
Yes.
what Jorah's been
Oh,
looking
shame.
for. Only Sam can give him
You
that
had the
answer.
cure in you all along, Jorah.
But it was interesting during that conversation because Tyrion's chastising Theon. I mean, I love, when we have these sort of diplomatic meetings like this for the first time, and the two opposing parties, whether it's a lord of a house or two lords of two different houses, there's this banter. There's this almost like, I'm testing you. I want to see what you're made of. So I'm going to poke at your holes, poke at your insecurities, and see how you handle yourself, in the royal court.
Yeah.
So this was really cool to just kind of see Theon get, a little bit of a prodding. I know you hate Theon.
I do
Ginny.
hate Theon. Like, as much as I loved that scene, and I was like, clapping
Yeah.
for it at the same time, I'm like, but I hate you, Theon, and I hope you die. But it's cool, but I really hate you. Like, it's just, that's just what,
I mean-
like, little on my shoulder, like, it's really great, kill Theon. But
Yeah.
it's really good, but kill him. Like, that's what was going on in my head.
Yeah.
But it was kind of we needed that, I think, and I think we needed to see Tyrion have that moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of like, Karma's a bitch. How are
that
things?
go?
Yeah, how are things
How's
going?
life? How's life?
Yeah.
After you made fun of me,
Yeah.
life been treating you good? No?
It's a little
Okay.
blow.
Didn't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't think it was going to end well for you.
Yeah,
But,
and then of course, they finally make that deal, and Yara and Daenerys come to terms that they can agree on, and
No raping,
no
no
more
raping,
raping,
no
no more
pillaging.
raiding.
And I love that
Yeah.
Yara was like, but that's what we do.
Yeah.
So like,
That's our brand.
can we talk about
Yeah,
it?
that's
That's
our
very
brand.
off-brand for
That's
us.
our brand.
Like,
She was like, but that's our shit. That's our
Yeah.
jam.
yeah,
That's what we
our
do.
bread and butter right there.
So I want to take a quick moment to thank our friends over at Vanaheim Studios and Iron Shield Arms, John McClay and Fawn Davis over there. Once again, have lent some amazing weapons and armor for our set. So go check them out online, ironshiedarms.com, and you can find some really cool stuff on their site. So back to the battle, because we have a lot to talk about there. I know we don't have a lot of time left. So obviously, there's a psychological game that's taking place between Ramsay and Jon, and it's really just kind of a mind game, right? Jon's still in his shell-shock days, as we've talked about throughout the episode, but he finally woke up during this battle. We kind of unanimously agreed. So he starts by killing Rickon with one of his games. That was really hard to watch.
I saw it coming, though. I think
You
we
did.
all saw it coming. I had already prepared.
You
like,
called it from the opening credits.
I was
okay?
gonna die. Like my favorite Stark is Rickon, and as we saw with the Shaggy Dog incident, I was already then like I was like Sansa. Like I came to terms with it. I was like, Rickon's dead. Yeah. Rickon's dead. I was like, he's dead, and I have to grieve now so I can get over it and deal. And I'm like, don't tell him to run. Don't tell. Oh, you're telling me. I know what you're gonna do. And it was the whole time. Like I knew it was coming. It was a little easier, kind of. I had already prepared myself.
Yeah.
But then even worse though was that Rickon getting shot and you knew that was happening, but then the other arrows that hit him
Yeah,
and they
the
showed that
second
shot, I
round.
was like, come on,
Just to
guys.
finish the job.
That was just rude.
Yeah.
That was like a personal attack on
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And I feel like,
It was rude.
Yeah.
It was rude.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much more to say about that tragic moment in House Stark history. So we'll move on to Jon and Tormund in the middle of that battle. I mean, that was intense. I really like the formation, the strategy that was involved in that, and unfortunately they were just
The
outnumbered.
giant pile of bodies.
They didn't plan. It seems like Jon, after his conversation with Sansa, still did exactly what Ramsay wanted him to do, foolishly. And as we know, Jon Snow knows nothing.
Really
So
Shit.
that all got screwed up, and they were literally just getting squeezed in. Tormund's there fighting the Umbers, those damn treacherous Umbers.
It really just started like my first, because I'm a history nerd too, and like Civil War stuff, especially, like I've been to Gettysburg and everything. I love that, and it was so like Devil's Den, Gettysburg, Civil War, bloodiest thing that's ever happened kind of scene. Like that, I felt like I was watching one of those
Fields are
documentaries,
soaked in blood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember we were watching and screaming, and there was one shot because of the shield of with Flayed Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bolton.
The Bolton sigil. Man, at one point they were up, and there was a pile of bodies, and arrows were sticking out, and I was just like, why do I look like I'm watching a shot from Les Mis? Like, it was so bizarre.
It was total Braveheart, Lord of the Rings.
And like him being drowned in bodies, I'm just like,
I couldn't breathe.
That was so
Claustrophobic.
well done. Yeah,
Claustrophobic,
that's really like almost like another death for him. Like he's trapped in a coffin, underneath all of these dead bodies. It was a pretty intense scene, and the way they shot it, where it was very disorienting and suffocating.
Yeah,
was
but
well
it was
done.
also good though that they didn't go the route of just doing the shaky cam so you couldn't
Right,
see anything.
correct.
Right.
They let us see what was happening, even
Right.
though it was chaotic. We
Right.
were still like we knew what was going on.
Seeing
so
him getting squished
Beautiful.
in the mud and
Yeah.
squished in the mud and reaching
Yeah.
for air, and then literally having to climb bodies, living and dead, to get
Right.
through
Yeah.
the middle of that.
I mean, the sound design was awesome for that scene.
Yes.
What they were doing.
No,
with
that
the
was
breath and all
gorgeous,
that.
and I know that we were both just screaming, "Just let Tormund be all right! Just let Tormund be all right!"
I wanted Yukon Cornelius to be okay. I really did.
And of course we have at the very end, when everything seems completely bleak, like it's over. We have the Army of the Vale come. Littlefinger arrives. There's a lot of speculation as to who Sansa was writing that letter to, and now we can sort of put two and two together. It's safe to say it was.
Yeah, if anybody
Littlefinger.
didn't see, like they did release the letter that she sent, like the fans put it together, like what it was actually written. But if you hadn't
Right.
looked at the stuff afterwards, this was that's exactly where that letter was going.
Yes.
Sansa had already ridden off and was ready to meet him and was like, "Here we go," and they were just like the cavalry coming in at the very end.
Man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm happy that he came through finally, like man of his word when it comes to Sansa, because his word is a little shady. You know what I mean? Like he'll come through, but then there's always
As
a
long
catch.
as there's something in it
Yes.
for him.
But I think what
Yes.
they've alluded to for next week's episode is there is something in it from him.
Of course,
For him. He wants
we know he wants.
Sansa.
Yeah.
He wants
He wants
to marry
her hand.
Yeah, he wants to marry her.
He wants
Also
to be
because
Lord
he's
of
obsessed with
Power.
Caitlyn, and
Yeah.
and she looks just like her mother, and he was obsessed with her, and he also wants power. So.
He's got a lot of pathological issues.
That's been his plan since the beginning, though. Since
Yeah.
they met in King's Landing, we've known that he
He's
wanted to
wanted-
court her. Because remember, initially he was trying to get her to sneak away on a boat with him.
Right.
And then I think his plan has always been to put her back in Winterfell so that he could marry her
And they
and
could-
become
yeah.
the Warden of the North himself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty interesting to see him with his bannermen and all that,
Yeah, but I think Sansa's learned her point where she's like, no one can protect me. I am
Yeah.
Yes.
she's not. I don't think she's gonna fall for it anymore.
She
but
won't
shit,
anymore.
and it'll be fine.
Here's the question I have for the two of you. Do you think there is anyone left or anyone willing to legitimize Jon Snow?
That's a great question.
It is a great question. And I think if they were to install Sansa as, queen in the North, you could do
Right.
that right away.
Right.
It really just depends on whether or not, whose politics are going to end up,
Right.
whether that's going to benefit him. And really at this point, I don't even know if he even cares. He just seems
Right.
like so,
Right.
I don't think he wants Winterfell.
No, he
doesn't.
doesn't.
So
But I think that's gonna be one of
Mm-hmm.
those things that they do to him. I mean, story wise and
Yeah,
writing wise,
like
he
they want
doesn't
him to
want
do,
it,
yeah.
but he's
Sure.
gonna be forced into having to figure that out and choose that.
Yeah.
So we have the tables turn. The army breaks the line. and the cavalry comes in and breaks the line, and we have the retreat back to Winterfell. And as we saw, we know what happens when you send a giant to break into a castle. He does.
He's
That
gonna
poor
do it.
one.
It's happened like what, 3 or 4 times
Yeah.
over the course of the
Yeah.
last few
Yeah.
seasons. So 1-1, obviously he's
And he
dominates.
sacrificed himself to
He
get
did.
through
And
that
he's such
line.
a noble,
Yeah.
you know.
It's very sad. I was sad.
Yeah, he's a noble giant. It was awesome, and it was, you know, he's just become one of those kind of like he's almost like a fill-in. No one will ever fill in for Hodor.
Yeah.
But it was almost like one of those beloved side characters that you're like, yeah, 1-1, go smash some people,
Smash some
rip them
people.
apart. And of course we
Yes.
saw his possible death.
Yeah.
Well, he definitely
Yeah.
died. Ramsay
Yeah,
gave him the finishing
everyone,
blow.
and that was it. Like that was, and my favorite part of that scene was John picking up that shield, and it was a
Yes.
Mormont shield.
It was a Mormont shield,
and
yeah.
I was just like, how's Mormont go? And it was just seeing Ramsay, like every arrow, he got a little more worried and a little more worried,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he was like, oh, this is not working.
But to that point, we didn't even mention the fact that little baby girl Lyanna Mormont
I was just
was
gonna say
hanging
that.
out on the,
Oh,
on
yeah. I
the
was
gonna
horse
say
like
that,
at the
yeah.
negotiation.
Glaring, like burning a hole
Come at
in
me,
his
bro.
skull.
I was like, oh
Yeah.
shit.
She was ready.
Yeah, she was.
ready.
She was right there.
Zero
with,
fucks given.
with,
Yes.
None.
with her 62 warriors.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to hear that like every Mormont soldier lived, like they all.
Yeah, all
made it. They're
62
the
of
only
them were
ones that
intact.
made it through.
And so, of course, we have this final showdown. It's all led up to this. They're inside the gates in Winterfell, and it's Jon Snow and Ramsay. And after he takes those arrows out, he
The fists
demolishes
go
them.
out.
That was such a great feeling to see.
That was
that happen.
satisfying.
What do you guys
really
think?
Even
was.
just the.
Let us know. Don't forget. Don't forget.
Tell us how
We're-
happy you
we're
were.
I know how happy we were.
Tell us.
Yeah, they were
join the
screaming and running around.
There's a lot of that. And you'll find more of that all week in our Facebook discussion group. It's the Small Council, a Game of Thrones discussion group on Facebook. And ask to join now, and there's lots of conversation that's going to take place there. So we'll see you there. But right now, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll finish up talking about this amazing finale for
and
the
we'll
episode.
get to some.
And we'll get to
tweets
some
and
questions.
comments. Yep.
In case you missed it live.
In case you missed it live. In case you missed it live.
Oh my God.
Figure that out.
High five.
Just to let them know.
We had a crazy vampire threesome.
And you can't unsee that. That's burned into my brain now.
I was like,
You know why we saying yes. You know why we saying yes.
look at me, I'm dancing.
He was like, yeah, I'll tell you whatever you want.
He is wait something.
And we're like, ooh, inseparable.
These hoes ain't look. These hoes ain't look.
You just went to a totally different direction on that one.
I love it. That's genius.
We're funny.
Billionaire goes broke, it means he's got like $4 million.
There's got to be a code on that.
This might actually be a thing.
Somebody better take some pictures of this.
What did I do? What is there?
Are we there yet? Can we talk about that?
We've been waiting all night. I don't like to break nails.
You can't count anything out.
It's been another awesome night at theStream.tv, guys.
Thank you for joining us, you guys.
And welcome back to the Small Council here on theStream.tv. And this episode was by far probably one of the first ones where we were all jumping for complete joy when everything went down after this battle. After the turnaround, after Jon Snow was pummeling the shit out of Ramsay, how rewarding was that feeling?
So
seeing that
satisfying,
happen?
and just the smacking noise of just his face. The sound design of like sounds like meat being just like. Yeah.
Speaking of
yeah.
good meat,
Speaking of delicious meat.
what is your feeling on that ending? Do you feel like Ramsay got what he deserved, or do you feel like it should have been drawn out more? What kind of person are you?
How disgustingly should we have hurt him?
Yeah.
My one question is, where's Ghost?
Great question.
Where's Ghost? I really wanted Ghost to also eat him. So I was kind of like, I wanted a direwolf to eat him just to be really simple with it and just like, I want my house sigil to eat you.
Yes.
Like, that's what I want to happen.
The wolf eating the flayed
But,
man.
you know, the dogs worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah, I enjoyed the dogs. I enjoyed the fact that Ramsay's last bit wasn't just with Jon beating the entire
Right.
crap out of him.
Right.
Even though that, again,
Yeah,
that
like
was,
he got his
That was
and- yeah.
satisfying as fuck. But I loved that it was Sansa. I loved that it was just a moment between the two of them that I thought was very well written.
Yeah.
And what was creepy, what we were talking about, is how the dogs were just kind of hanging out waiting. Like, she was
Yeah.
full on monologuing. They had a conversation.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like,
yeah.
a
The dogs
two-page
waited till
scene.
she-
She's monologuing, and the dogs were like, can we just...
You-
Is it
You
time yet?
you finished, right?
Because I want to eat. So that was
Yeah.
that was satisfying for me, and I thought good enough and gross enough for what needed to happen with Sansa. I think, and him,
Sure.
which is different than the Sansa Joffrey thing.
Right.
Like, I wanted Sansa to slit Joffrey's throat.
Yeah, like just slide in the knife.
Yeah,
kind of
I
thing,
really
yeah.
wanted her to.
Let's be more specific about these ways we want to see these guys die.
Sorry, but
I mean, come on,
yeah,
like,
but I thought
his face getting bit, that first bite, I was like, oh.
I thought it was incredibly appropriate.
nice.
The way he tortured her
Yeah.
with the cages and the dogs and the whole thing. I
And
just
even
thought
his
it was-
last little bit, he was still trying to hurt her one last time.
Yeah.
He was that abuser trying to get in his last little hit.
Yeah, he tried to seize control at the end there, if you
Yeah.
notice. I mean,
And
because
she was-
he's very much the kind of, or he was, very much the kind of character that enjoyed the thrill of being in control. And so you see that he knows he's defeated, and he still tries to take control of the situation. He's like, well, I guess this is it then. Now I'm gonna die. You know, and that was his way of sort of reframing everything.
Yeah, it's
and
like,
trying
you're
to
never
say,
gonna
like,
fully get rid of me.
Yeah,
like, you're not.
I'm in you. I'm a part of you.
Yeah, and she's like, no.
Yeah.
You're done. You're destroyed. Your house is
erased from
destroyed.
history.
Everything. You're gone.
Can we talk about that? That
Yeah.
an entire house is
Yeah.
just done.
Yeah.
Like
Another one.
Another
Yeah.
one.
And this is where I started singing "Another One Bites the Dust."
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
it happened, because an entire house done.
Yep. So it's Baratheon. It's
Baratheons are
Martell.
gone. Martells are gone.
It's,
Well, Baratheons aren't necessarily gone. If you go with my theory,
There's
that
still,
Gendry
there's still a
is-
chance. There's still a
There's-
chance.
There's
Robert's
a chance there's a
biological-
Gendry
Yes.
running
Child.
But
around.
as far as technically,
technically,
it's
yes.
gone. But there is a chance.
Yes.
I think that's it right now, right?
Yeah, I mean that last scene of her just walking away, like,
And House
Beautiful.
Forrester. We won't talk about House
Oh
Forrester.
wait.
Yeah.
Which houses
And-
did we say were gone?
Martell,
Martell.
Baratheon, and now the
and
Boltons.
the Bolton. Yeah.
Martell, Baratheon,
Yep.
the
And
Boltons.
I think pretty soon the Lannisters. at
The
this
Lancers
point.
Lannisters
They
about
are
to
running
be
out.
stretching for air.
Wait.
Yep.
Am I crazy? I'm crazy. There may have been some cocktails. Crazy Sansa's crazy aunt.
Oh no,
Like,
that,
well, Iron. Yeah.
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 at Harrenhal.
Yeah.
No, they're still around.
No,
That's
that's
part of the
the
army.
Vale,
that
yeah, that's the Vale,
I
yeah,
know,
no.
but I'm like, they need
Yeah.
to go away
Robin-
too, though. I'm sorry.
I
Robin-
don't think Robin's very
not.
long for this world either.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think so. I'm like, they need to go away, and I always forget about. And I'm like, oh right, you guys.
That weird little kid. Yeah.
He's
So let's
weird.
check out these questions. See what,
All
what
right.
people are asking.
All right. We
On
got-
the intertubes.
On the interwebs.
on the webs.
So on Twitter, so remember hashtag small council, Hikari Suni says, well, that took a very Hannibal turn.
That it
Yes,
did.
yes,
That
it did.
It's the only way it can turn when you're talking about
No,
Ramsay
yeah.
Snow.
Oh yeah.
And
know
Cuban41 says, just best episode of TV I have ever watched.
Wow.
That is high praise.
That is high
That is
praise.
high praise.
I think, I mean, it's, in terms of
It's up
like
there.
action and in terms of things actually happening, I think, that is really up there, at least with, the Game of Thrones episodes of having something satisfying happen.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
taken 6 seasons for us to get to a place where House Stark even seems like they could do something. You know? So it's been a very underdog few
Yeah.
seasons. The entire storyline, yeah.
And then we got DC Manugian. Is that how you say it? I'm always pronouncing names horribly. I apologize. That's some true medieval horror. Especially the battle. Yeah, that battle was just. That bodies were like what? Like 50 high? Like just.
Oh yeah.
Climbing. I'm like, oh no. Like just the thought of the. And you knew they showed like the wounded and like trying to be like help and like you're not getting help.
like, no.
You're done.
No.
And the shot when Ramsay's army horseshoe, they circled them. The first was
Yeah.
a horseshoe, and then they finally
Yeah.
that shot, that wide shot, was just epic and terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just the sheer scale of this episode was a lot bigger than what we've seen before. Episode 9 is traditionally an episode where something really huge happens that affects everything moving forward. And this is definitely one of those situations. The first time we didn't see that was in Hard Home, right? When that was episode 8.
Yeah.
And so that kind of broke from the
Yeah,
usual
but usually in the end of the season, there's that
format.
one big punch, and this was that big punch.
Oh yeah.
They got
It was
it.
more than a
then-
punch. It was like a
they got it.
slam dunk. It
And
was
then,
awesome.
and then, seeing those Stark banners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
that was satisfying.
God! I get goosebumps.
Cried
I'm just like,
tears of joy.
so good, so good.
I was like, we're finally home. House Stark, Winterfell is ours again. It was so awesome. It was such a good feeling.
Over on the YouTube chat, actually,
Yes.
I had quite a few people saying some comments like, "I wish Ramsay were still alive so we could torture him for a whole season."
You sadist, you're no
Like, come
better than a
on.
Ramsay Snow.
We just gotta kill some people. Like, let them be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that we can talk about him in the past tense now.
I do too.
Yeah.
Right?
As we once did with Joffrey.
Yes.
Until he
Beautiful.
Came along.
Oh,
so
that happy
good.
dance I did.
Oh, yeah.
That was
The happy dances we all did.
Yes.
And we're all doing today.
yes.
Awesome.
All right.
Any other questions in the?
No, I
YouTube
mean, everybody's
space?
just kind of freaking out.
Yeah, I know.
It's a lot of cheering, and
Yeah.
we are with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. So, really great episode. Thanks again for joining us here on the Small Council on theStream.tv. Don't forget to subscribe and check us out next week. We're going to be doing something a little bit different.
Yes, actually, on the day before, we're going to be live streaming us watching episodes 1 through 9.
Marathoning.
To marathon through that whole thing on Saturday, so then we are prepared for Sunday.
That's right. And we'll see what happens on Sunday.
So yeah, so check Twitter. We'll post all the links for everything, and yeah.
And we'll catch you next week. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Enjoy your week.
Bye.